On this week's episode of the Going Deeper podcast, we're talking about biblical community. What's up, Fathom Church? Welcome to the Going Deeper podcast. This is your host, Kyle Knight, and these are episodes that we like to talk about a certain topic, hopefully to help you go deeper in your relationship with God. I'm in the podcast studio with our very own missions minister, Karina Bost. Hi, Karina.
Hey.
And our lead pastor, Chris Martin. Hello, Chris.
Hey, bud.
Hey. So, we're going to be talking about community today. It's a big, broad topic, but we just kind of wanted to talk about what does community really look like? Like, that word gets sort of thrown around a lot, especially in Christian circles and in churches. But I'd love to look at what community really is. What is good biblical Christian community? What should it be? But also what it isn't, and how it's kind of gotten a little
It's like a buzzword
mixed up. Yeah.
You belong here. It's like, it's very much it's like a huge,
there's a lot of community and church names. There's a lot of
community
different
churches,
community
but
churches.
it's like a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we can go all over the place with this, but I really, I want to talk about biblical community and what that looks like. First initial thoughts, Karina, what is community to you? What does that look like?
Community?
Biblical
That's a
community,
giant-
Christian community.
Define
What is your
it.
community?
Define it.
That's great.
Anything you want to say about community? Go for
community is, I think it's where you go. This is the thing, is community is such a vague word that community is the people you go to church with. It's the people in my small group. It's like where you live. Like you say, what community are you from? And so community is assigned to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I think as Christians inherently, we have to do a little doctrinal work around community. This is here. Let me give you the reason why, Karina. I think community is a hard thing to nail down like that, from a definition standpoint. Let's just assume that everybody agrees with us on doctrine. Okay. Just for the sake of fun.
Sweet.
Which they should, but Christians throughout the centuries, the last 2 millennia, are Trinitarian. Actually, this is one of the only doctrines, by the way, the doctrine of the Trinity, that God is Father, Son, Spirit, 3 in 1, one God, 3 persons. That's a doctrine of the Trinity. It's the only doctrine that I can think of, a major doctrine right off the top of my head, that Roman Catholics, Greek Orthodox, and Protestants all agree upon. So it's a big deal. Big deal doctrine, okay? There's probably other ones. That was a bit of a preacher move to just make a sweeping statement. It's the only one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But they all, listen, all the major Christian denominations agree upon the triune nature of God. That God, before he creates anything, before Genesis 1 creation happens, that God is in perfect community, a perfect love community within God's self. That's a weird idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
But God doesn't create the world and beings because God needs or wants someone to love. It's not because God is at a deficit of community that he creates creation so that he can have a community around him. No, God is in perfect community within God's self, in the triune Godhead, and that this is for all eternity past and for eternity future. God is perfectly in community with God's self. And then out of that perfect community, God spills forth creation, and we are then image bearers of that triune Godhead. So why I said that everybody should believe this, that means that every human being, whether you believe in Jesus or not, is inherently an image bearer of a perfect triune community.
Mm-hmm.
We are not triune. We are not perfect in community by ourselves. And so therefore, this is why in Genesis chapter 3, or Genesis chapter 2, God says, it is not good that the man should be alone. Therefore, I'm going to create him a helper suited for him. And then he takes the rib and he creates Eve. And then all of a sudden we see the first human community, a husband and a wife, perfect complements of one another. This is built into the fabric of humanity that we are built for. We'll say this all the time. We are built for community. And I would say that rolls all the way up to because we are created in God's image. Because we are created in God's image and God is in perfect community, we too are absolutely needing community. And so that shows up in families, that shows up in marriages, that shows up in parents to kids and cousins and grandparents and all of that. But then that moves out, not just in the family unit, but then biblically it moves out into the community of other followers of God. First, that's with Abraham and his descendants in the Hebrew people. Israel is that community. And then Jesus creates a new community kind of out of Israel that then includes Gentiles and Jews that we would call the church. So now the rest of the world has their own communities as well, which I still think are an echo of God's creative plan for humanity. So you've got your bowling league, or you've got your tribe that you belong to, or you've got your fan group that you're a part of, like whatever it might be. All of those community ideals stem from the same original place that God placed that in us. Like it's part of our human nature to need, to desire other human being relationships. So that's, I think, theologically where we start with when it comes to this idea of community. Now we can now with that in mind, we can start to dial into, okay, so then what defines and distinguishes Christian community, and what are things that are problems, and what are things that are solutions, and what are things that are myths that need to be busted, and what are things that, we would say are absolutes that must be pursued in order to live in Christian biblical community.
Yeah.
Is that helpful to kind of think that through?
Yeah. And one of the things that I was kind of thinking of, and I found this article that talked about the lies of Christian community, of what sometimes as Christians, what we believe Christian community is, and really just isn't true. And Chris, I mean, the first thing on there was that one of the lies that we kind of tell ourselves is that this kind of goes against this community podcast. We're talking about it, but that one of the lies is that it's unnecessary. Like actual Christian community is unnecessary for having a relationship with God. And you kind of just talked about that is biblical to be in community with people.
Oh yeah. And it's even on our previous podcast about evangelism, Karina, you brought up the Great Commission, where we are baptized in the name of, which is also into, you could read it. Yeah. There's like a footnote in Matthew 28 where it says you can be baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or into the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, which means that when you become a Christian and you are baptized, baptism is kind of that inaugurative move as a Christian. But when you become a Christian, you are baptized into the triune community of God, which then includes his church. And so, yeah, when sometimes the Lone Ranger Christian mentality, it's just my relationship with Jesus is just me and Jesus. And I don't need other people. I don't need that relationship. It's a private thing. It's just between me and him. No, like biblically, no, that's not how it works. You are baptized into the community of God. Yeah. You're not just you're not just saved from hell when you surrender to Christ. You are actually brought into this kingdom, this tribe, this people called the church.
Yeah, John 17:23 says, "I am them and you and me, that they may be completely one, so that the world will know that you sent me and that you love them just as you have loved me." And it's that unity within community that we show the world who Christ is. And so that's what it says, that the world will know that you sent me. And so that's definitely like part of the biblical view of that.
Yeah. And as much as like we'll get into kind of the misconceptions of what community really isn't, I think first and foremost to say like we are like we are meant for community. I mean, we like when I used to do youth ministry, like I would tell teenagers this all the time is that like, you're not in this alone. Like like you're not going through this journey and following Jesus alone. At least you shouldn't be doing it alone. And so that's why I think that's a good place to start, because that's why I think as Christians, when we join a church or get together with other Christians or whatever, I feel like we should, and we strive for it, and like we thirst for community, and what that is what we're gonna talk about, is like, what is that community, quote unquote community? Like what does that actually kind of look like? So we know that we need to be in community. We are called to be in community. Chris, let's talk a little bit about, let's talk about maybe the pitfalls or the slippery slope of what community isn't, and what people kind of, maybe Christians look for in community, and things to be aware of in like areas that is not community, and just to be careful of what community isn't. I don't even know what I just said.
No, I don't either.
Take that with what you will.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, I mean, we can just, spitball a few ideas around this, but like, I think sometimes people are looking for, like one specific thing. Like, I'm looking for people like me, like-mindedness. I'm looking for people, either who are my same age and stage, or who are of the same race, or who are of kind of the same, political persuasion, or are of the same, affinity. I like this thing, so I like knitting, so I'm going to look for my knitting crew. Like, we're looking for people who are like us. And I think, that kind of peer likeness is an important thing. I think you should have people that you can see eye to eye with, and are kind of, shoulder to shoulder with, walking through the same season of life, or same likes and dislikes and all that. But that's a pitfall, is that if you Christian community is not meant to be only people like you. We see this in the early church with Jew and Gentile, slave and free, rich and poor. I mean, the early church is such a rich fabric. It's like a tapestry of different people. We see this in 1 Corinthians, where like rich people and poor people are coming together. I mean, the church is very diverse. And so if you're looking for, if you're not looking for diversity, I think you're missing on a part of what Christian community. That might be a pitfall that comes to mind. What about what do you guys think on other pitfalls? Other pitfalls of Christian community?
I would say that, like look, like if you're just looking for similar interests, or even like similar like theological stances, or like diversity, I think is a key there. I also think of a pitfall could be thinking that community can happen overnight, or can happen with a change in scenery, a change in church. Like for instance, we hear a lot of people who are joining churches or going from church to church because this church has a good, like they love the community of that church. Or, I loved certain aspects of this church. Like I loved the preaching, I loved the worship, but the community just wasn't there for me. And so I'm going to go to this other church where I'm going to immediately find community, because I just know they have good community. And I think when we think of community as just that, like an aspect of church that can happen just showing up and being like, oh, good, this is community. I think that can be a pitfall if we have that view of community, that it can we can go wherever we want, and we could leave a church just to find like that community isn't happening here, but it's happening over there, and that's where I'm going to find it. I don't know, that's kind of, whenever I think of like people who go from church to church, it's like, well, I didn't like that community, or that church had great things, but not community, but I can find it over here.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to think about, that like, it's not like a thing that a church has or doesn't have.
Right.
Right. It's not like this church has a youth group. That church doesn't have a youth group. It's not quite as binary as that, because a church of, 8 people, if they love each other and serve each other, and if they're kind of meeting some of the biblical standards of community, that's community.
Yeah.
Community is a lot more gray area. It's a lot more nebulous, really, than they preach expository sermons versus they preach topical sermons, or they have contemporary worship and they've got traditional worship. It's a lot less black or white, because you might come to Fathom and never really find community, connect with community. But that doesn't mean that there's no community here.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that a church either has or doesn't have.
Right.
It really feels more like, are you finding it there? Has it become a thing for you there? Or, but I like your idea here, Kyle, that like one of the flaws is sometimes people think it needs to happen instantly. Like it needs to happen right away in order for it to be community. And I would just say, I don't think that's the case. The illustration that comes to mind is, sometimes people meet, like a man and a woman meet, and it's, quote, love at first sight. And then sometimes a man and a woman meet, and it's months or years before they, quote, fall in love, right? It just takes, it's more of a process. And I think sometimes you show up at a church and it's just, you meet your best friend that first day, and it's like, oh man, I found community here like that. And then other times there's some work that's to be done. You have to meet some people and maybe try some groups and serve on some teams. And then all of a sudden, maybe you will find it. Maybe you won't find it. But it's more nebulous than that church has community. That church doesn't have community. No. You just didn't find it there. I don't know. It's a strange thing.
I would ask, I'd be curious for those people to be like, well, what are you looking for? Like, are you looking for that group?
Most of the time people are looking for a programmatic element that may or may not foster community.
Right.
So I'm looking for a church that has a softball league, because a softball league is where you find community.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right. So you're not looking for you want community, but that's a byproduct of an event, right? Of a program. Well, I'm looking for a church that has a youth group so that my kids can have community. Okay. I get that. Right. The program though is the means, the community is the ends. It's the result. But a church doesn't have community or not have community. It's not quite as cut and dry as that.
Yeah, it's not like a checklist item, something you can be like, signed up for a D group, going to a D group, check. Because you can show up to a D group week in and week out and invest nothing and never truly find community.
Yeah. Is that the right word? Find? I mean, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, probably.
I've been saying that for the last couple of minutes, but I wonder is that like you have to work. You have to break into community. You have to seek it out. You have to cultivate it. In some ways you do.
I think that was huge.
Cultivate. But in some ways you have to find it. Like sometimes you just, like, even if you do all of that, that's not the recipe for community. Because sometimes it just, one of our elders, John Holm, when he talks to D group leaders, he always says a lot of this is chemistry based. And like, sometimes you have chemistry with the people and sometimes you don't. And so it's nebulous. But I understand the frustration, but I would just encourage our church, but then also, people who might be looking newer to a church or looking for a church. If you expect instantaneous results, you're going to find yourself lacking in a lot of ways, because this is not as easily discernible as, do I like the preaching or not?
Right.
Do I like the music or not? Do I like the missions that they offer or not? Those are programmatic elements that are a lot easier to make a judgment call on. Community is a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And I think where I've had a lot of conversations with people in the past of who have maybe, been like not happy with the community at a church, or not felt like they had community at a church. It was a lot of that cultivating, seeking out peace that I think a lot of people struggle with this is they just, and again, whatever views they have of what actual community is to them, I think some people think that community just happens or it doesn't to them. So like they show up and they're going to a church for a month and then they go, well, I'm leaving. Well, why are you leaving? Oh, because I didn't find community here. And it's like, okay, well, did you join a D group? Like, were you a part of this? And when the answers are like, well, no, like I didn't do any of that stuff. I just thought like I would show up and I didn't feel community there so that kind of stuff makes me just question it a little bit of like, okay, again, what are you actually thinking community is? And you've got to cultivate, you got to seek it out. You got like real biblical community in your local church is like, you might have to work to kind of find that and what that looks like. It's not just gonna happen if you don't do anything, if you just show up. So
what about the flip side of this? Okay. So we've just talked about like the person who comes to a church, they like the program, they start showing up. They maybe, let's just say they do the work, they get into a group, they get into a serve team, but just never really click, never really find community there. I think that's one case example. I think the opposite though is something that I see sometimes. It's I come because I like the sermons. I come because I like the music. I come because my kids like Sunday school. But I don't need to belong any deeper than that. What's your response to that person who they're here, they're in their local church consuming, but they aren't communing with others in that church deeply? Well, what's your response to that person?
I'm going to use a Tim Keller example.
Yeah.
He talks about how even just us individuals as humans are very complex. And so like to get to know Chris, you see him as a pastor first and foremost, and you know him in that. But then to know him further, you'd have to see him, as a husband, like how does he interact with Marcy? And then as a father. So it takes lots of people to know Chris further. So how much more so is that with Christ? And so we actually learn more about Christ by interacting more and more with other believers. And that's why community is so important, because we learn God more through the eyes of other people than just our isolated, hey, this is what I learned. This is all that matters. This is what's in my head. This is what the Bible's showing me. You learn so much more about God by being in community.
That's really good.
Well, that's Tim Keller.
Thanks,
I love Timmy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just, again, think about all the aspects of like biblical community, like what that actually entails of like, it's not just, if somebody's like, I get all my other pieces, but I don't need to be in community. Well, then my question would be, well, where do you like get to meet together and encourage one another? Like, where are you finding encouragement from other people? Where are you encouraging people? Where are you praying for each other? Where are you caring for each other? Where are you speaking into each other's lives? I think if we have this surface level view of community of just being like, or just like hanging out with common interests. Well, yeah, I think for some people you'd be like, well, I don't really want that, or I don't really need that. But if you look at it in deeper of like, when you were talking about what scripture talks about, like living together and carrying each other's burdens and praying for each other and growing together and discipling each other. When you think of community as that, it's like, that should be like, oh, I need that. So yeah. So, I mean, that's a hard one. If somebody is liking and getting everything else, that consumeristic kind of piece of it, but doesn't want to join in real community. It's like, that's a tough one, because that's what the church is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in our modern, I don't know if this is just a modern issue or not, who knows, but we've really built the church in a way that allows for that kind of consumption, that we have goods and services that we offer to people, and they can just take advantage of that and maybe be able to find community elsewhere. So maybe that's the next piece of this is, what do you say to the Christian who says, hey, I'm at Fathom. I like the preaching. I like to go to, All Stars once a month. My kids love the youth group. I'm not involved really. I'm not really in community. I'm not in a small group or a Bible study or a serve team because I've got 3 guys at work that I do a Bible study with once a week. Or me and my college roommates, we still grab a coffee once a month, and the girls, we all catch up, and that's my Christian community. Or I do some, I'm a part of Promise Keepers. I've got some sort of parachurch ministry that I'm, or I've got a small group that I meet with from 3 churches ago. Like, what's the response to kind of what I've called like a piecemealing, the buffet sort of thing? I come to Fathom because I like this piece and I get that there. But then I go to, this church for this piece because I really want to do that. They've got a soup kitchen. I really like to serve that. And then I've got my Christian community at this, and it's almost like you're at a buffet and I want a scoop of that from there. And I want a scoop of that from there. And I want a scoop of that from there. And then I got my tray, and this is my church. This is my Christian community experience, but it's from, you got a scoop of Chinese and you got a scoop of Italian. There's like a meatball rolling off. And then there's you're like at a buffet, right? Where you've got, or I guess at the Cheesecake Factory, where you can get legitimately everything that you want. So like, what do you say to that buffet mentality where community is separate from your church experience?
Yeah, I think it's this assumption that community is a group of your best friends. And I don't think community is community within the church is your best friends. They're not the people who share interests and are like-minded in everything. And I think that's what makes community so valuable, is it really challenges you to have hear other views, and it challenges you with different perspectives of where people are at in life. Community is that chance to sharpen one another and encourage one another and build each other up in love. And it's easy to build our friends up in love, but when we're in community at our church, that's a lot harder to practice, but it's necessary. That's what I think I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard, but it's like, totally forgot what I was going to say. It was there, but it wasn't. But again, I would go back to what you're looking for in community. I believe if you are a part of a local church, that Christian community should be a part of your church. Like if you're looking for that elsewhere, I was reading an article and it gave me the characteristics of what biblical community is. And it talked a lot about generosity, empathy, humility, unity, hospitality, forgiveness, accountability, all these things that what biblical community should be. And all of that to me should be found in the local church. And so I feel like if you're kind of piecing it all together, or if you're all in at Fathom except for community and you're getting that elsewhere, I would kind of question and be like, well, why? Like you have your church is here, and you should be diving deeper into with the people here instead of just trying to find that. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't think it's me.
I don't think it's bad. A terrible thing.
I wouldn't,
because you're in community.
I mean, I've got Christian friends who I'm in community with who are not a part of Fathom. But I do think you miss out on something if you aren't in the Christian community in your local church. One is because you should be regularly attending your local church. So there's a regularity there. And to your point, or to Keller's point, you begin to see more facets of who God is, but you also get more eyes on your life. And so building accountability and stuff, that regular, I can look good once a month for a crew, but if it's, you see me every Sunday and you're at my house every Thursday for a D group, you start to, the shine of Pastor Chris wears off when you've seen him in stretchy pants multiple times. It's just, but that's like real. That's like real life, right? When you're sick, when you're struggling, when the ups and downs come, like that's important. Additionally, I think your Christian community, you're learning the same things together. You're studying the same things together, which is a deepening. It takes you past kind of surface level conversation to say, hey, we've been studying the Gospel of Matthew together for months, and we've been working through this together for months or years. There's a shared common experience that I think you miss out on. I'm not saying kick those Christian friends to the curb, but I'm saying there are riches to be mined in the local community. I mean, and then I'll throw this one in there for free. Longevity pays dividends. It just pays dividends. So, I mean, Kyle and I have been friends in Christian community for a long time, but I think the last 5 years, I mean, we've known each other, Kyle, for almost, 19 years in friendship, but the last 5 years of being in church community together has enriched our friendship much deeper than it ever has been. I mean, Kevin and I, Karina, your husband and I, and you and I mean, the last 8-9 years you guys have been at this church, 9 years, probably almost 10 years now you've been at the church. I mean, our friendship is way, way deeper than it was at year 2 or at year 4 or at year 6 even. Like this is such an uncool thing. The cool thing today is to keep hopping to new, sleek, hip, whatever's the cool church. Just check it, always switching up. And I'm just saying 10, 15, 20, 30 years in rich, biblical, God, Christ-centered community. That's different, man. That's different than it's the same with marriage. I mean, I just celebrated my 18th anniversary and we are just so much better at 18 years than we were at 8 or than we were at 1. I mean, we just are because we love each other better. We know each other better. We've been through more together. And the same is true for your church community. So I would say, keep your friends. Like, don't stop going to coffee with your girls and chatting about, whatever you're chatting about. But gosh, you're missing out on the rich fabric of the blessing of the local church. And we're missing out on you.
Yeah. And I think that's important to say, like, not giving up on those, because that can be Christian community, but don't forget about your church and not just the consumeristic piece of this, but like the benefits of being there with your church week in, week out, going through hardships, encouraging each other with the people that you worship with and that you're seeing their kids and you're seeing them grow. I don't think that can be overlooked for sure. Any last thoughts on this big idea of Christian community?
I'm good. I think we covered it.
It's good.
I like it.
That's good. Well, thank you guys for having this conversation. Again, church, if you have anything that you want us to talk about, want us to discuss a little bit more, feel free to email us or talk to us on a Sunday or in D groups. Let us know. Let us know what you'd like for us to discuss. Thank you, church, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.